Yeah.
Okay, hello, everyone. Shalom. God bless you and welcome. But we have a very interesting departure this week, a little side direction. We're going to skip forward to Lot, and actually not talk about Lot so much as Lot's wife. Now, you say, the dads of the Bible, what does Lot's wife know about dads of the Bible? And she knows a lot because Lot's wife, who, by the way, is right behind me, that's the Dead Sea right there, and you didn't know that that's the largest salt statue in the world. Is in the Dead Sea, and it looks like Lot's wife. I mean, so they call that Lot's wife. Interesting geography there. But tonight I'm going to take a little bit different direction about personal development and finding the true you. Knowing who the true you is. Because Lot's wife turned around and became a pillar of salt. But there's some steps coming up before that, and then that decision moment, and then what happened after that with Lot, that led Lot to be the true you. And this is the same thing with dads. And so I mentioned true you because a friend of mine, a lady I know and admire and respect, who's actually world-renowned author, coach, self-development speaker. She's the author. Her name's Katherine Woodward Thomas. She's the author of Calling in the One, the book that has helped over 1 million people around the world fundamentally transform their relationship with love, finding love. And her other New York Times bestseller is this one, Conscious Uncoupling, which has helped all the Hollywood stars with their divorce. And I wish that I had it for mine, but I didn't know her back then. And it changes it changed the whole world in thinking about actually when divorcing or separating or thinking about that, to do it consciously and do it and in a way that I love this. Her subtitles are the best. 5 steps to living happily even after. That's funny. But she's come out, actually, her masterwork, her magnum opus was not those 2 New York Times bestseller, but she just sent me this one. And I've already read it. I was looking at some of the edits. And she sent me this one with a beautiful little personal message. And this is her new book. And I don't know if it's come out yet, but it's coming out soon. And it's called What's True About You? And this is a transformational book. And this is, so she's like the Tony Robbins for mostly for women reader. But I really like her work. And she's down to earth, right? Yet she's speaking at the next stage and always moving you forward. And she's not just one of these, oh, you're so great, you're wonderful, your true potential just hasn't been noticed yet. But no, she's like, you got to do the hard work. And you also have to go inside. She's one of the most rigorous, compassionate, and courageous thinkers on trauma and transformation of our entire generation. And what she shows in her own life story and in this book, that she believed with everything she had that the person you're born to be is still there, still intact. And the trauma was maybe some cover, that no matter what happened to you, no matter how deep the wound, the true you was never actually broken. It was just covered. So I'm going to bring this framework that she's got, and I'm going to share this video with her. I hope she's going to laugh a little bit. I know we just pray for her and her health and her situation with her family, and we just pray also, Lord, that her followers get a hold of this book, and that new people come, and that millions of people can learn from this, and also through this find a closer relationship to Jesus Christ, which she talks about at some point. But in one of the things that are these source fractures, And this helped me out a lot, because she says, well, if you can identify these source fractures or these messages that you're telling yourself, we typically identify ourselves with one negative message, and we repeat it over and over. And it's amazing, because she catalogs these and then is able to then show you the way out of it. So use your source fracture story. You provide yourself as a source, then shows how others may experience you, what others may see you as, because a lot of people aren't aware how other people see them. And that's actually based on this interesting way we present ourselves in the source fracture. And she has power statements and new ways of relating, and then skills and capabilities to learn. And this is for 22 or 23 different source fractures. And, you know, it's like stuff that we say to each other, like, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, I'm crazy. What other ones? I'm not enough, I'm a failure, I'm not important, I'm powerless. And so, you know, this is it's a good manual for this. For me, it was I don't belong. And it says, I don't belong, I am lost, others don't see or value my gifts or potential, others know more than I do. And this is the source fracture. This is the, you know, where that trauma comes or whatever. But well, she's not just like these other people. She's saying a lot of different, like, you have to like work on it and then go do something with your life, right? And that's where it gets great, because then it goes through this whole thing just with this source fracture. And then it has power statements. And these are kind of like the positive affirmations, but much more than that, because they're targeted. It's like I can say, I am an essential member of any and all communities that I choose to belong to. My ideas and contributions are essential to the well-being of any group I am a part of. And you see, I actually need to remind myself of that. You're like, but Josh, you're the head of the dad's group. You play guitar at church, everything. But the truth is, I don't feel like I belong in most communities. So having these specific phrases helps out a lot. And then she nails it right at the end. She talks about your gifts, and based on your different area, you'll have different gifts. And I enjoy a rich inner life and am profoundly creative with fresh perspectives and unique ideas to offer. And so this is tonight's going to be about going through this 7-step process, but as a Christian dad, and looking at Lot's wife in the typical way that we would look at dads of the Bible. We're going to look at Lot, and we will look at Lot again from a different dad angle. He's got a lot of dad stuff going on, but tonight we're going to look at him in the sense of the dynamic between this source fractured you, who's going to return to the familiar, and that is represented by Lot's wife, and then the true you, which is the one that moves forward and leaves that old life behind of Sodom and Gomorrah and moves into the mountain, goes into freedom and safety. So I'm splitting Lot and his wife from two people. I'm merging them into one personality, which is the source fracture to the new self. So stay with me for a few minutes. So this is pretty important. And this is the one thing that's really connecting her and Lot. The story of her and Lot is that the future is any future is possible. And it's this idea of creating your own future. You have to create the future. Well, there's only one future that actually will be possible, which is the future that is. But you can always change direction. And that's what Lot's story showed, because they ended up separating and going different ways, Abraham and Lot. So let's go ahead in Genesis 13. Kingsley, you got your Bible open?
I do.
Okay, so we're at 13, and go ahead and read from verse 5.
All right.
And at verse 5, to 13.
5 to 13. Okay. All right. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abraham, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And quarreling arose between Abraham's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and is that Perizzites? Yeah, were also living in the land at the time. So Abraham said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Lot looked around and saw the whole plain of Jordan toward Zor was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tent near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, so Lot had a choice, didn't he? He said, well, it's just like you say, okay, well, am I going to choose to, one's going to go to Nebraska, and in the other direction is New York City. And one brother's like, okay, actually, I believe Lot was the nephew of Abraham. So Lot said, hey, I'm going to go make my place with these guys. Can you be a good man and live amongst the heathen in Sodom? Yeah, you can. Okay? You don't, but is that what happened? Well, yeah. So Lot was Abraham's nephew. They were raised together after the death of the father, and so Lot means covering, veil. Okay, his very name means what obscures the true you, the covering over the original self. Okay, and now this is very interesting, and so. And it said that Lot was a good man, and in Peter in the New Testament it said that it tormented his righteous soul. It said he had a righteous soul by the lawless deeds he saw and heard day after day in Sodom and Gomorrah. He went to Sodom. No, in that Bible verse that we just read, he knew the character. He knew the people that were committing all these sins and sodomy and everything else. It said in the Bible, Genesis 13, that the brother just read, that it was wicked and sinning greatly. And so he chose it anyway. And so what happens the night before everything burned? Okay, so he's there, he's with his wife. There's some angels that come visit him, some guests, right? They end up being angels, but Lot doesn't know it, and his family doesn't know it. And so, and this is in verse in 19. How about we just read that? Let's just go ahead and go to 19, so we can really stay on top of it. And Kawhi, you can read this time.
This is Genesis 13.
Not Genesis
19.
Yeah, 19 and
Genesis 19, 1 to 3. Right?
Genesis 19. Let's go ahead. Yeah, read all. Yeah, it's actually the whole thing. Yeah, we'll just overview it, but basically, just read Yeah, read 1 to 1 to 1 to 8. 1 to 8.
1 to 8. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we will spend the night in the square. But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them. Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him. He said, no, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Oof.
Yeah, we might as well keep on reading a little bit longer, right? Because it's like the worst intense thought. So read until 15.
All right. Get out of our way, they replied. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved forward to break down the door. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The two men said to Lot, do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-laws, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against his people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. At the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished.
Oh, yeah, keep going, keep going.
When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and of his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city. For the Lord was merciful to them.
Great. Read 17 and finish there.
Yeah. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away.
Okay, thank you so much for reading that. Okay. Oh, no. But this is not about homosexuals. This is about a city that was so wrapped in sin and destruction that they were coming just to rape the visitors from outside, the foreigners, the guests that came to stay with this guy. They just wanted, if you didn't join in the orgy and join in the parties and join in the Dionysus or whatever it was, then they would come and rape you. It's like you're either in or you're nothing. It's like Jeffrey Epstein kind of thing going on, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, they're sacrificing children. Anything goes in Sodom, right? So then what happens? So the mob surrounds the house, and Lot, you probably forgot that part too. Lot says, "Oh well, no, don't take my guests, but would you like my virgin daughters instead?"
Yeah, that's really screwed up.
So now, when Dads of the Bible, we could do a whole episode on that. But remember, at that time, we're talking about different things. But what happens? The angels act. The people that visited him. Why did they visit him? They visited to give him a warning that they were going to destroy the city. But he didn't know that. but they blinded the mob, and then he gave they blinded the mob that came to come rape them. So I guess they took care of it themselves. Neither of them dropped a soap, and then they then they say flee will be destroyed. But then what happens? The notice it said that, and that's why I had you keep reading. Oops. It said the angels. It says Lot hesitated. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
It says he hesitated, and the angels then grabbed his hand and said, "No, go, and take your wife and your kids." Because it said also that the fiancés of his daughters, who he just offered up, said, "No, he's just joking. This not gonna happen. I mean, come on, this is Sodom, man. Woo, party rape." And so they thought he was joking, so they went away, and he took his other daughters with him, right, and his wife. And the command said in number 5, "Do not look behind you. Flee for your nefesh." Nefesh is a Hebrew word. You guys know I like to pull in the Hebrew words. Nefesh is your existence, your soul, your being, and your nefesh. So he just doesn't say run for your life. He says run for your soul from your entire being. Okay. So very interesting story that happened. Now that's where it just starts, because now we're going to get into the true you. Do not look behind you. Flee for your life. That's what we got to think about when we get saved. That's what we got to think about when we understand our own inner trauma and the challenges that have happened to us in the past, whether it's related to our dad or not. What happened in Lot's story is that here's the new beginning. The old city is going to be on fire. So you can't turn back. You have to move forward. And Lot said, okay, I'll go to the mountains. He actually made a little negotiation with he's a good negotiator, Lot. And we might get to that in the actual Dads of the Bible series when we get to Lot. But he was a good negotiator, and he negotiated to go to this city Zoar that's on the way to the mountain, because they said flee to the mountain. And he's like, well, can I get to Zoar first, it's a pretty long journey to the mountain, and I'm a kind of old guy. And so they accepted that or whatever. But notice the imagery and the symbolism here. You're told to go. You have a realization of the depth of the degraded, deprived person that you are, or that the people that you're around are toxic, or that your life you're in a place in your life, whether it's a specific environment or not, you're in a place where it's unhealthy, where the deeds of the people are rape, murder, and theft, and anything goes, as it were. And you think, well, good, they're getting out of there, they're going to run out of there, and they're not going to look back. But what happened? The angel said, don't look back. And we all know, because that lady's standing right behind me, the pillar of salt right there, still there today. Old Lot's wife back there. So I don't know if you were on Kingsley when I talked about Lot's wife, but that's in the Dead Sea. And it's the tallest salt statue in the world. So it must be her. So she looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. So let's notice these differences. Lot walked into the sunrise the next day, and that represents the true you, the one that's moving forward, the one that Katherine talked about. And Lot's wife chose to stay stuck, frozen in the moment of turning, meaning that she preserved, she stayed in the wound of her childhood, the source fracture. She still looked back and thought, oh man, I'm going to miss those orgies, or I'm going to miss the ripping off meat, and having abundance of meat, and I'm going to miss the culture, the music, the excitement of life that was there. Maybe she was saying that, Or maybe she was actually holding on to something that was familiar to her, and she was afraid of the change, and she was afraid of finding her true self and going into this new direction to be with her true self, because it felt easier to stay in the safety of what you already know, even if that is something that's you don't want, like a toxic relationship or a toxic environment. And so we have two selves in this story of Lot. We have Lot's wife, which is the traumatized self, bonded to the source of the pain. Familiar suffering feels like safety. This is why a lot of people, like women who get beat in the relationships, domestic violence, they stay in the relationship, right? This is the same thing with like people that support Donald Trump. No, that's sorry. But like the victim abuse thing, right? They, and they just stay around because they're familiar with that. They can't imagine, and this is what's happening with so many people. They can't imagine a future different from the past. They don't see it. They don't see it as a possibility. And so she turns back even in the moment of rescue. Now we're starting to see Lot's wife in a different way. That this is actually a very common story that's happening. It's happening in our lives. We're getting ready to reach out. We're getting ready to take that next plunge, that next leap forward of faith. And then something holds us back, and we're like, oh, no, the familiar life it feels more safe, and it's preserved in the wound. Whereas Lot represents the self of the true self, right? Not perfect, but he hesitated. He was compromised. He's obviously offered his daughters to the rapist mob. He needed to be pulled out of the situation. He didn't leave on his own, right? They needed to come there and actually convince him. The angels did, and he was. So they didn't just let him hesitate. They said, "Get out, buddy." He kept moving even through the uncertainty. Okay, he didn't turn back. He walked into the sunrise in Zoar the next day. And that was his original self. So his true self, right? He stayed true to himself. And it wasn't the best self, but it doesn't matter. It was the true self. And so this is the brilliance of this story, but also how it represents something psychologically that happens inside of us, of all of us, really. We're all seeking to have that true you. And God is the one, through his Holy Spirit, that comes in. He's the one that's acting as the angels in our lives, as that still small voice in our head, or through some person that might shake us up and say something, or somebody who receives a prophecy. That's also possible. Or an angel. But the important thing is that he listened. He hesitated, but he listened. And then he repented of his sin of offering his daughters, which is just one of those things that I'm sure God was like, what? You didn't have to offer your daughters. I mean, but, we do stuff that's imperfect. But main thing, he didn't look back like she did. And so we mapped these premises that she's got 7 steps, starting from your source fracture and leading all the way up into what Viktor Frankl calls self-transcendence, and is this idea of moving into a new, your own true self, which is also not just a selfish self, but a self that considers others, and that's where we have our Christ self, right? And so she's got these 7 premises: claim a positive, possible future, name your source fracture story, wake up to the true you, see yourself as a source, identify new ways of relating, embrace a growth mindset, make new choices, take new actions. Okay? And so the first one is claim a positive. So this is 7 steps of freedom. And in the first thing we have to do is claim a positive, possible future. So Lot's wife didn't see the mountains in her future, right? She only thought of Sodom and Gomorrah in the situation she had, and we have a house and we have a garden and it's cool. She was afraid to think of what the positive possible future could be. What future are you claiming for your family this year? What future can you name out loud for yourself or your family right now? Something real, something vague is what Catherine would ask you to do. Well, I'm going to be claiming a future of security, financially, spiritually, emotionally, a secure future, where I'm completely free from worry about finances, and also that I can play more music and in a place where people appreciate my music and my contributions. And so, for my family, I definitely, I'm claiming I see a positive possible future where my youngest daughter can grow up be in a kindergarten and being around other kids out in nature and spend some time doing multiple intelligences activities and not just stuck in some little tiny kindergarten in the middle of the city, and that we can have some chickens. I want some chickens because we like to eat a lot of eggs. So what about you guys? Anybody else on the call?
For me, spiritual growth and growth in my marriage and then bonding with my children. I think we moved to the US. For me, it was, we moved from the US to Austria. For me, it was a year ago this month. But for my wife and kids, they stayed behind so the kids could finish school. So they're coming up on 9 months. So like this is still a relatively new environment, but like they're getting their bearings. And we're growing as a family, so we're looking to see, where God's going to take us in our relationship with Him and each other. But it's been an exciting ride so far. So we look forward to the year ahead. This is the first spring they've been here. And last summer, we didn't have much of a summer because we didn't have any furniture until July. So this year we've got it here, and we're going to get out and have some fun. So we're looking forward to that.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, for me, I think this year has also been a very new start for myself. I've been in Austria for some time now, but I think I've gotten too comfortable too fast, and started realizing that my life became rather stagnant, and I got extremely lazy with my spiritual life. Dare I say, I left the church for many years. And this year, I think I'm starting to kind of bring myself back and, yeah, change a lot of my habits and trying to put God first in the decisions of my life, and but really trying to take responsibility. I don't have a family. Luckily, I don't think I'm ready for something like that. I feel like there's a lot of personal growth that God is calling me to start with. Yeah, so I do look forward to it. I don't really know where to go, but I'm open to following God's lead on this one.
Great. Yeah. And so open to following God's lead, but you got to be able to imagine a positive possible future for yourself. And do you see yourself in that future with a family and with, building really cool architectural or churches or whatever it is? Can you see yourself in that?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like it's interesting that you asked because, as an architect, we feel like we should have those visions, right? But I think I lost a lot of it in the last couple of years working. Whereas, back in my school days, I did have a lot of visions and possible futures that I saw myself, and everything sort of over the last couple of years sort of completely, chipped away a lot of those possible futures that were in my head. And yeah, I do think it is time to kind of start imagining these possible futures. It's
Yeah. You
yeah,
could hold on to that.
yeah, I kind of need to like uncover those things. It's been sort of buried. These visions or these dreams or yeah,
Yeah. You can if you can visualize the future, that future is possible. And so one of the things we can't let ourselves fall into that weakness of this is the only thing I'm going to get. Vienna is the end of the world. And I've thought like that myself sometimes. Vienna is the end of the world. And it's not going to get any better, and it's not going to get any different. I got to stop that, because that just is going to lead you down that road to turning back and to staying in this rut that you're in.
right.
So that's the key first step, right? Then she talks about naming your source fracture story. Now, she goes into this in the book, and I definitely recommend the book. But we looked at in Genesis 13, right? He lifted his eyes and chose Sodom by sight. See? He chose Sodom by, it looks, to have lush plains like Eden and stuff, it's a lot better than the kind of desert kind of area you're going to go to, Abram. Sorry, buddy. And that was his source fracture, okay? He chose what looks good over what is good. You see? So this isn't going back down to your childhood and whatever it is at your childhood. This is a certain type of fractured self that you do. It's a pattern that you repeat over and over and over again. It's a story that you tell yourselves. So Lot's wife, who's not named, by the way, didn't even get her name in the Bible. She carried Sodom inside of her, unnamed, unexamined, and ultimately frozen in it. So she didn't try to identify her source fracture. She just had that pattern of Sodom, Sodom, Sodom. And so this is the original moment or season running your decisions without your permission. This is, what is the one story you've been telling about yourself that Sodom wrote, but your true you never agreed to? And so she calls it naming your source fracture story. And she suggests that you connect with your younger you, your younger self, put yourself in that position. And what was it that hurt you? What was it that you did? And I could put mine back to a couple different experiences. And let me see if I can find a definition for source fracture. She says It's an act of faith to declare a positive, possible future when you have little evidence of that life could move in this direction, and a lot of evidence that it won't. It's only natural then to hope that once you take this first courageous step, you'll immediately receive your reward. Yet it doesn't quite work that way. What usually happens after we take the first big step is an equally big, even bigger breakdown. As the saying goes, destruction before creation. The structures that have been keeping your old story alive often have to crash and burn before the new, healthier ones you're standing for can emerge, which means you'll want to be on the lookout for and even welcome rugs that are suddenly pulled out from beneath your feet, curtains that are ripped open to reveal the shocking truth of who Oz, like the Wizard of Oz, who Oz really is, or the blow of taking an inspired leap to only land face first in a dung heap. Right? So these source fracture stories, you have to understand, well, what is it, that thing about me? And there's these messages that she has. And I won't go through all these, but you know, if you look deep inside, you'll say, yeah, that's me. I'm the one who, I don't feel good enough. I don't feel important. You know, a lot of these things that I'm a burden, you know, I'm a burden on people. You ever feel like that? I'm different. I'm weird. I'm a freak. Others don't get me. I'm disgusting. I'm, you know, I mean, it's men aren't talking about these things too much. Women talk about all this stuff all the time, right? But guys aren't talking about these things as much. But we still have these source fractures. Just because guys aren't talking about them, just because we don't feel comfortable talking about our feelings and things like that, and our past traumas and stuff, that doesn't mean we don't have them. As actually the opposite, we suppress them, you know, in this kind of weird topic. So I identifying that as important. And then the third step is waking up to the true you. Lot was sleeping inside the life he built. So the angels woke him up, didn't it? And so this is the idea. You have to wake up and realize, wow, actually, I do belong. Actually, I am an important person. Actually, I am worth something. So whatever the trauma story is, you, or true you, is the opposite of that. Okay? Whoop, whoop. And so this is the question to find a true you. In what part of your life do you feel most like yourself? What is that place showing you? I feel definitely most like myself right now when I'm with my Christian brothers having a good conversation. What about you? When was the last time you really felt like yourself, like just you, not like a managed version of yourself, but felt just good about being you?
So it's definitely a challenge.
Right. And so, yeah, it's well, you know, life's full of a lot of challenges, and you know, without struggle, there's no reward. But it seems like you guys have that internal positive source, and you both have said that there's some signal, there's hanging on to something, like whether it's pleasing your family or seeing yourself advance in a small way. What you're doing is the next step. Let me get it up there. It's seeing yourself as a source. Okay, and so you identified what it is, where you want to go, what you see the positive future as. You've identified this thing that kind of holds you back somehow in your belief, this illusory belief about yourself, that Jesus says that's part of an old man, that, and you have to forgive yourself as well as forgive others, and we need to keep that in mind, right? Like giving away the old wine and bringing the new wine is also forgiving yourself and letting go. And so but then, so you identify the source fracture, then you identify yourself, then you can see yourself as not that, but yourself as a source. You are the source of what comes next in your life. Just like Kawhi was saying, that he is the one. I am the one that's taking it on myself to take this risky endeavor of jumping to Munich next week. And he's playing different strategic cards and things like that. But he knows that he's the source of success or failure when it comes to this architecture certification. He's the source of this. It's either him or nothing. And this is the question. I mean, how do you show up? Are you a source? Are you a source of peace and protection and direction, or are you waiting for something to fill you up? And this is one of the things that you actually mentioned to Kawhi, is that you say, well, I'm just kind of like letting the Lord, figure things out. What's the Lord going to figure out for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's often maybe it's also a source of lazy thinking, just sort of, hey, Jesus, take the wheel, so I don't have to think about it anymore. Show me the next step.
Exactly, bro. And that could have been what was going on also with Lot and Lot's wife, right?
Yeah.
Like Lot's like, man, dude, we're good here, right? You guys came here. He hesitated. And Lot's wife disobeyed the instruction because it's just easier if somebody else does it. It's just easier. It's easy for me to say, "Oh Lord, please help me with my diet," and but in the end, the Lord will help you, but you got to want that thing, and you got to actually be the one to actually do it. And you say, "Well, but where's God then? Where's God?" Well, God's there the whole time. God's the one that's pulling you in that positive direction. God's the one that's holding you up. Whenever I think about God, I sit up straight because I'm thinking about the higher being up here. But guess what? God, because I'm like, oh God, I need help with my back pain, and pray for me. I go to church and people, if you pray on they lay the hands on you, but God's like pulling me up, and the back pain goes away if you just have the correct posture. For example, I'm just giving an example, but I'm the source of both the pain and the healing. And so looking at ourselves as that, if Lot would have seen himself as the source of safety, and for both his family and his guests, then he would have been better off. But he didn't see himself as the source of safety for either his guests or his daughters. Lot didn't see himself as the source of safety. If he would have said, I am my true self, is the protector of this family. My true self is the father of this family. And I'm going to protect my kids and I'm going to protect my guests. Then that would have been this honorable, true self that I'm sure he wanted to be. And but that he had to be the source of that, you know. I mean, we could rely on God, but that's when you need to rely on God, right? You're like, okay, God, I'm going to protect these guys. No way you're taking my daughters. No way you're taking my guests. You know, um, come and get me. And you know, but he didn't have to do that. Fortunately, but seeing yourself as a source was a really key insight that we oftentimes skip because we want to give it over to somebody else. And a lot of what she talks about, truthfully, is a lot of people, they live in their trauma. They like live in their victimhood, right? They're like, oh, you know, I grew up, you know, without a father, or I grew up and my family was abusive, or my mom was abusive, and I'm not saying these things don't happen. They do. They happen a lot. But I'm saying you don't have to live in that source fracture anymore. You can move on. And a lot of people, especially women, they talk about, they have these circles, you know, they sit around, they talk about their trauma, they talk about this and that. And this young generation is full of this trauma induced speech. And everybody's anxiety disorders and all the other self-claiming to have self-diagnoses, they call it, which is an interesting concept in itself. But but you know, but this the thing is that these guys are actually passing over responsibility for their own happiness in their own direction, and passing that over, whether it's to your trauma, which is definitely going to keep you down and low, not to overcome that lower self with the higher self, or giving it over to God, some idea of God. Oh, God, you take care of it. Hey, man, there's a lot of things God can take care of, but we can focus on our own life because God doesn't really care. In the sense of whether we go this way with our career or that way with our career, God loves us. God loves us for who we are. And the more we become the source of creation, the source of newness, the source of great things, the more we become that, the more God says, hey, you're being the true you, the one that I've loved since the beginning, the one that I could count every hair on your head since you were born. That's the true you. When my little baby daughter and our kids, you know, Kingsley's looking at his kids and he's saying, oh man, that kid is so honest and so unique and so authentic. That's how God is with us. And then he sees us grow up and he's like, oh man, you've become someone else. Right? Yeah. What kind of jerk have you become? That's not your authentic self. That's not the true you. Who's that guy? I don't know. I want the true you back. That's what God says. How can you say, oh God, take care of my life. I don't know what to do. That's just okay. Become like a child again. Because I tell you what, my child, the youngest one, she knows what she wants, buddy. She goes after it. And I said, that's amazing, you know. And I said, I want to be more like my own daughter. She's teaching me a lot. But that's God. That's God saying, no, Josh, your true you is the one that belongs. Your true you is the one that gives and doesn't give up. Your true you goes after that thing. And so go after it. Easier said than done, you know, when you got, you know, kids in different countries. But we do what we can. I mean, we make the best of our lives, you know, but being authentic is the best thing you can be. Mm-hmm. All right, the next one, identify new ways of relating. Lot had to release every relationship tethering him to Sodom. his sons-in-law who laughed at him, his daughters who stayed behind with those guys. The new ways of relating means releasing the configurations built on the old self. And so this is her 5th step. So this is just like the new wineskins and the new wine. If you have no new wine, you need to have new wineskins. Otherwise, when the yeast happens, it'll burst, right? Jesus talked about this. You don't put old wineskins on new wine. And so when we have this awakening of our true you, we need to discover new ways of relating to other people, right? My authentic self, I've asked myself, wow, because sometimes I get angry with my wife, and we get combative with each other. And I have noticed over time that she has a certain way of really like stabbing, and I have a certain way of attack that kind of minimizes her. And so we have these different styles of attack when we fight. It doesn't mean we don't love each other. That just means we have a certain approach and style, and we're never happy about it at the end. But if I start to step back in the way I approach her and the things I say, and she starts to step back in the way she approached me and things she said, and then we look for a new way of relating to each other that's based on an authentic and true way of relation to each other, that's a lot better. And now some people, they refuse to grow up. I can't help you with those people. And if you're in a relationship with a person who refuses to grow up, well, maybe that is keeping you in your source fractured state, like Lot and Lot's wife. And notice she didn't come with him. And she perished along with his daughters that stayed behind. So we skipped one. This is cool. Carol Dweck. I think his name's Carol Dweck. Caroline Dweck. Carol Dweck. She's a famous researcher in the field of education. I've mentioned her and a couple of other Dads of the Bible sessions. Embrace a growth mindset. So you have your source fracture story. You know what kind of the way is. You've redefined yourself. You know you're moving in positive directions. You feel compassionate about yourself and others. What could you do now, right? You grow. And you know what the problem with growing is? It's tough. It's like you said, Kingsley, it's like struggle. But you're growing. You see the growth mindset that you had? You're like the little things that work, the little wins, the little successes. Your kids when they do stuff right, when they do stuff that you're proud of and that you feel honored to be their dad. You are growing. You're not falling back into fear. You're growing. And so Lot kept growing by saying, okay, I'm going to go to Zoar. He bargained, like I said, he bargained for Zoar, and then it's the place where he could survive. But then he eventually left and went to the mountain in 1930, it says. And so he didn't stop. He kept growing past the safe thing of the city. And where is your Zoar? You see, Lot's wife had a fixed spot. She had a fixed identity. She had decided what she was and where she belonged in Sodom. That decision froze her. Right? But like with Kauai said, hey, listen, I'm not stuck in Vienna. I can actually get out of Vienna. And because if there's not a career option here, then my true you isn't here, because he's an architect and he loves what he does. And so this is a big question in my life, because also, I compromised to be here in Vienna, and I'm still going back and forth with that decision. But it's not just talking about place or environment. It's about what would it look like to get up and keep going towards the actual mountain. So in this sense, where have you settled into in your life, into this other story, that if you were just not afraid, or if the resources were all there, where would you go? What would you do? It's always a struggle. But where would you go? What would you do?
Yeah, this is a tough one.
It's speaking directly to you tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I struggled a lot about staying in Vienna. But recently, I guess I sort of had a different kind of revelation, and it's more that the Vienna is not the problem. It's my mindset of somehow feeling like I am not. I relate to you a lot about like not feeling like I belong, to the city, to the culture, and feeling like it's sort of a lot of, yeah, like limited career options. And but then at the same time, I am not too sure as well if moving away is the answer to everything, or is it actually about adjusting my mindset about, like God put me here for a certain reason, and there is unfinished work here for me.
Right.
And I guess I'm still struggling. Yeah, like, is this the right way to think about it? Is it not? Still praying about it, but I think the moment I decided to sort of start moving away, suddenly there are new doors opening up and certain other doors closing. And I guess I felt a little bit of a calling to stay here and figure out my mindset first, and then maybe it's time to move on. But at the moment, I'm feeling a bit of a pull to stay.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a constant struggle.
No turning back. So the seventh step is make new choices, take new actions. Okay. So once you got yourself kind of figured out there, and it says, Lot reached the mountains. Every step was a choice, not one grand heroic decision. 7 premises, each a small act of refusing to be who Sodom said he was. So Lot's wife didn't change. New actions didn't come because she was still stuck in her old identity, the source fractured identity. She was still Sodom's wife. Her feet moved forward. Herself stayed behind. But what's the new choice this week? What can we do? Name the one new choice this week. Make one the Sodom version of you would never make. For me,
Yeah. Even though I run, it still catches up. It's part of getting old.
yeah, and more, isn't it? But 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 you're committed. So a commitment to be in shape, a commitment to see yourself with a good body, not having a spare tire or a dad bod or a dad gut, they call it, right? You don't want that. I want to be the dad without a big gut. But beyond that, committing like for this dad's group in the church, like, that's a big commitment for me because I don't, I don't, it's starting a new group and it's quite a lot of work. And I didn't even have a dad myself. So I didn't have a dad. And I mean, what do I know? Right. And so, and I don't even feel like I necessarily belong in Vienna, and that doesn't necessarily belong to the church, to the VCC or whatever church. What do I got to tell everybody? What do I got to show? But actually, when I just decided to step out of myself, see myself as, hey, somebody who is a great dad and also can teach other dads, because there's a lot of wisdom out there, a lot of knowledge, and I've got quite a lot, and the main thing is I'm a learner. So I'm willing to learn and find information, and I'm curious, and I pull things together and I put it in a package, and here you go. So that's really valuable, actually. I hope to you guys.
Certainly.
Yeah. So I just committed to it. Now I said I'm going to commit to 12 episodes, and I've gotten through 7 now, and I'm going to actually commit to the full 40. So there's going to be 40 weeks I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to even think about that I've committed to it. Okay. And so by the end of it, I'm going to know everything about the dads of the Bible and maybe make some new friends, right? And you know, like you brothers, like you go to church and it's just superficial, and you don't get to meet people, you don't get to hang out with people, you don't have to talk about stories, you don't get to hear about people's beer gut. You just keep it superficial. But these life groups are important, and they're only possible because we commit to them as leaders. And so we take the new action. But it's hard. And it's also hard when you live in Sodom and Gomorrah, New York City or whatever, and you're used to a really good, fun life, as well. And I've left that myself because it's so empty, and because Jesus came in my life basically and cleaned me up from the inside. But anyways, so surviving trauma and healing from it is Katherine Woodward Thomas's big deal. And what the text doesn't teach you is that, there's the other stuff with incest and with his daughters, and it's pretty, crazy story. But because he did escape Sodom, but Sodom wasn't fully out of him. And this is one of the key things is when we pray the Lord's Prayer of Lord, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. We need to take that seriously and not just say that empty, but also to understand that there is still sin in us. We might be saved and redeemed and through the grace of God, but we still have sinful thoughts. And sometimes those sinful thoughts can be the lack of self-compassion or the lack of self-regard, even saying, oh, I'm so stupid, or I don't belong, or I'm unimportant. You're sinning against yourself. You're committing violent acts, violent thoughts, violent words against yourself when you're saying these things and putting yourself down. Now, if you're telling yourself something objective, like, ooh, I just said something I shouldn't say, that was wrong. That's not self-harm or violence. That's being reflective and being truthful and honest. But these self-negative aspects, or these other things like I'll smoke a cigarette, or you'll have a beer, these things that we don't really need and don't really want, they just keep cropping up. Why? Because we're human, because we're part of the human condition. Well, we're also not fulfilling our full potential. So we got to work on it. Kingsley, you work on the stopping the beer, and I'll definitely work on the stopping the cigarettes. And we'll work on it. We can work on it together. That's what dads are here for, dad bros. And so you can still deal with this, and your children are going to see that too. Oh, I just lost that. But your children don't need a perfect father. They don't need a perfect dad. They need a father who didn't stop at Zoar and call it the mountain. They need a father who left Sodom, didn't look back, brought them to safety in Zoar. And then once they felt that it was ready and the Lord gave the guidance, continued on to the mountain. Okay. That's the picture. And what Lot teaches dads is keep your face forward. Your children are watching the direction of your gaze. A dad staring backward at old wounds raises kids who inherit those wounds. Number 2, let the angels grab you. Lot was too attached to move himself. The angels grabbed his hands. He hesitated. Let the therapist or the pastor or your friend Let them in. Let them pull you towards where you want to go. Let the angels grab you. Number 3, don't stop at Zoar. God said mountains in Genesis 19. Lot bargained for small. Stop settling for the minimum viable version of healing you can still believe in. That's a key principle there, guys. And number 4, let me put this back up there. Number 4, new actions, new future. Generational trauma is not destiny, it's default. The default runs until someone makes a different choice. That someone is you tonight. So every step away from Sodom is a new identity, a clean, healthy, better identity. That's the true you. True you was never broken. It was only covered. And the word lot means cover or veil. See? And so the true you of his wife was covered in safety in Sodom. And it came out at the moment of choice to leave. And Lot's true self was found out when he hesitated, when he hesitated with the angels, and they said, no, don't hesitate, you go. And then when God said, go to the mountain, and he said, well, Zoar is on the way. It's a smaller place, but it's a bit easier for him. So he bargained himself down, talked himself down. He didn't see that positive end, that high positive possible end that he would co-create, that God had prepared for him. So he negotiated himself down. That's not the true you. That's a veil. That's putting yourself into that source fracture story. And these 7 steps are a way to get out of it, but also just simply relying on God and inside yourself and saying, God, make me the true me. Show me who I am and who I can be, so that my life is fulfilled and that I fulfill your will in my life, your good and perfect will in my life. And I co-create with you the most amazing life possible, the one that I was meant to live. And you can say that and you can pray for that. And God's going to be like, I'm here, buddy. Oh, are you ready to go through the struggle? Right? Are you ready to go through the struggle? So Sodom is behind you. The mountain is ahead. So that's the end of the True You session on Lot's wife. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for staying an extra time and listening to the story. And also thank you for sharing your story. God bless you as you move forward in this week ahead. And please look for that true you, that authentic you. That is the person that we want to see in the world, and that we know might just be covered by a veil, but is in there waiting to come out in this most beautiful form.
Yeah.